All right, hi everybody, welcome to Hannah's Direct Line. This is the place where I give you informal answers about serious questions that you've asked me on social media. One of the calls that we made and you really came through was asking questions about corporal punishment, because I think many of you are concerned about what the UN is asking about corporal punishment. And let me just give you the context. When we went to Switzerland to give our country report to the Convention on the Rights of the Child Committee, one of the questions that they asked was about the abolishment of corporal punishment in Jamaica. We advised them that corporal punishment was abolished in our children's homes and places of safety at our basic schools level, and certainly in our remand centers. But they were asking that it be abolished across the board, that there is a general willingness on the part of the country to eradicate the beating of children by parents and by institutions. I mean, there is a principle that no one should beat a child in school as well, but in terms of the legislation to underpin that, that is something that is being worked on. But what I said to them was, look, Jamaica has a particular culture over time in terms of discipline, and while you might be asking me this here, I couldn't give you an answer immediately to say, yes, we are going to abolish corporal punishment, which would mean that parents couldn't slap their children in the ways that they were accustomed to doing in the past, and really in terms of that culture. So when we came back, we proceeded through an interministerial committee that I chair, which really has the different ministries that serve children and the agencies: health, Ministry of Youth and Culture, justice, national security, labor and social security, and education. And we have started the consultations with professionals looking at all of the data as to what corporal punishment does to a child, and also to now take that publicly, to have some public consultations with people in the general public as to how they feel, or how they would feel about the general removal of corporal punishment as a country. Now, those public consultations will be guided by research and with data to speak to people about it. So far, we've had 2 consultations essentially, and what the data is showing is that corporal punishment in certain instances result in some children becoming violent, especially if they have other antecedents. So we thought we would answer some of your questions, or I would answer some of your questions. So the first question is from Shanika, I will call your last name, and she asks, Minister Hanna, if we criminalize corporal punishment, wouldn't that mean that thousands of parents would be prosecuted and many more children would be placed in state care? The short answer to that is yes. If we were to criminalize it, then what it would mean is that if you were caught slapping your child or beating your child, then yes, you could be charged for that and your child could be removed. But you have to also realize, Shanika, that there are laws already in place for physical abuse of children. So if your child has been brutally abused, whether you beat the child and the child has marks and broken bones and is emotionally abused as a result of your physical discipline, that your child still can be removed under the Child Care and Protection Act, and you can also be charged, especially where that is concerned, because some parents don't realize that there's a very thin line between abuse and discipline of your children. Deborah asks, my question is, why are you hesitant to have the law changed with regards to corporal punishment? Just to clear the air, I'm not hesitant to have the law changed, and I'm not sure if I'm assuming that what you're asking is that it be changed to eradicate it. That's not my issue, Debbie. My issue is I can't, as a minister, just get up and say, you know what, I'll be dictatorial. I believe that from what I have seen, corporal punishment is not a good thing. Even if that were my position, or it were not, I think I have a duty to come and speak to the public to show you what we are seeing, so that when the decision, or if the decision is taken, then you are very, very clear about the ramifications of the law being changed either way and why that law was changed. So that is why I said what I said, that look, we can't just change the law immediately. We have to have the public consultations. We have to show what is out there in terms of what this does to children, and show the public the ramifications of corporal punishment, whether in the house, whether at school, whether in a workplace, whether on the side of the road, and have Jamaicans come to that connection about it. Lynn says, good morning, Minister Hanna. Has corporal punishment proven its effectiveness in curbing the level of discipline in school? What other alternatives is there to ensure or encourage positive behavior patterns in children at the primary level? I haven't seen that data yet, Lynn. What we have seen in terms of data is that the level of violence in schools in Jamaica is very, very high in terms of children having conflicts with their own peers. With the Safe Schools program under the Ministry of Education, that has been reduced by 50%. But the clinical psychologists who have seen children who are in excessive and abusive situations say that they also act out. So something as simple as stabbing with pencils are things that they see in schools. So I haven't yet seen up-to-date data on children who have been beaten or have been exposed to violent situations. But what the data that Professor Maureen Samsvaughan showed us at the interministerial is that it doesn't necessarily curb discipline, and that it actually works in the reverse, that it somehow doesn't really teach children how to have a more amicable approach to solve issues. And then the last one that I'll answer is from Colin, and he asks, Dear Minister Hanna, is there a thin line between corporal punishment and abuse? Do you think that some behavioral problems in children are as a result of excessive use of corporal punishment? I would have to say yes, there is a very thin line between corporal punishment and abuse, especially if parents are beating a child when they're mad, and sometimes you just beat the child excessively, and especially if the child is a 1-year-old or a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old and who's really being exploratory and inquisitive as children and their cognitive development and their brain works. And they get into certain situations and the parent doesn't understand that that is how a child grows, then you could say that it would be abuse, because you're really not supposed to beat a child at 2 or even 1. And just as an example, there are other examples, I'm sure. And do you think that some of the behavioral problems in children are as a result of excessive use of corporal punishment? I would have to take the clinical psychologists' answers and the professionals who have been doing the research in this area and say yes, there are some children who have other behavioral patterns because all they know is to be beaten. So thank you for listening, and I will answer your questions again next week.